The cold winds of the north blew strong over the vast icy plains beyond the wall. Snowflakes danced like restless ghosts in the air, settling on the furred shoulders of 3 riders who moved silently through the trees. Jon Snow, Ygritte, and Tormund Jonsbane rode together, an unlikely trio bound not just by purpose, but by the heavy weight of what they were about to do. Mance Rayder, the king beyond the wall, was gathering the wildling clans, thousands of them. Raiders, warriors, mothers with children all, ready to march south, to break through the wall, to survive the long night that was coming. But the Night's Watch wouldn't understand. To them, wildlings were enemies, nothing more. If this war started, it would mean death for both sides. Jon had seen enough death. "I still don't know if we can change his mind," Ygritte said, breaking the silence. Her red hair peeked out from under her hood, and her voice carried both hope and doubt. "Mance isn't one to bend easily." "We're not asking him to bend," Jon replied, his breath fogging in the freezing air. "We're asking him to see. If this war begins, we all lose." Tormund snorted. "I've known Mance longer than either of you. He's a stubborn goat. But he listens to reason, sometimes. Depends who's doing the talking." "And you think it'll be you?" Ygritte asked, half smirking. "No," Tormund said, serious no. "I think it has to be all 3 of us." They reached the edge of a wildling camp, one of many scattered like stars across the icy wilderness. Fires burned low in pits. Children huddled close to their mothers. Warriors sharpened blades, eyes sharp, watching. Jon's black cloak drew attention immediately. "Crow," someone spat. Jon kept walking. He'd earned a little respect after joining the free folk, but many still didn't trust him. He didn't blame them. The 3 were taken to Mance's tent quickly. The guards recognized them, especially Tormund, who was like a brother to Mance. Inside the tent, a map of the wall was spread across a wooden table, lit by dim lantern light. Mance Rayder stood over it, arms crossed, eyes thoughtful. "So," Mance said, not looking up, "the deserter returns. And he brings company." Jon stepped forward. "We need to talk." Mance looked up then, his eyes flicking between the 3 of them. He didn't smile. "You're a crow again, Jon Snow?" "I'm not here for the watch. I'm here for all of us." Mance raised a brow, but said nothing, waiting. Jon continued. "If you attack the wall, the Night's Watch will respond with full force. People will die, your people and theirs. And while we fight each other, the real enemy is coming. The White Walkers are real, and they don't care if you're wildling or brother." Mance's face darkened. "You think I don't know what's out there?" "I've seen more than you, Snow. That's why we have to get through." "We agree," Ygritte said, "but not like this. Not with war," Tormund added. "We need to find another way. Break through the wall without breaking bones." Mance walked around the table, slow and deliberate. "You think I haven't tried? The Watch won't listen. They never have. They'll never let us through peacefully. Then we make them listen," Jon said. "We prove we're not the threat. We offer peace first. If they refuse, then at least we tried." Mance looked at him for a long time. The tent grew quiet. Outside, the howling wind was the only sound. "You're asking me to risk everything," Mance finally said. "To trust that the same men who call us savages will suddenly open their gates." "I'm asking you to save lives," Jon said softly. "We all know what's coming from the north. If we fight each other now, we won't be ready when the dead arrive." Mance stared at the map, fingers tightening on the table's edge. He didn't speak again that night, but he didn't throw them out either. That was a start. The next morning, the camp was tense. Word had spread that Jon Snow had come with a message of peace, and not everyone liked it. Some called him a traitor. Others just called him stupid. But no one dared touch him, not while Tormund stood beside him like a mountain that could move. Mance Rayder summoned his war council at dawn. The biggest leaders among the free folk filled the tent rattleshirt with his clinking armor of bones. The thin-faced weeper with bloodshot eyes, and old women with faces carved by wind and time. Every one of them was angry, proud, or both. Jon stood in front of them, Ygritte and Tormund at his side. "He wants peace," Rattleshirt barked, laughing harshly. "From the same crows who hunted us like animals?" "He wants us to kneel," the weeper hissed, spitting on the floor. "No better than dogs." Jon looked straight at them. "I'm not asking you to kneel. I'm asking you to live." A silence fell. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried something that cut through the tension truth. "We're all going to die if we keep fighting each other," Jon said. "The White Walkers are moving. You've seen what they can do." "We've seen," Mance said quietly. "But the crows haven't. That's the problem." "Then let them see," Tormund growled. "Let Jon speak for us. Send him to Castle Black with a message. A real one. Not war, but a warning." "No one will believe me," Jon replied. "They think I've turned." Ygritte stepped forward. "Then I'll go with him." A few murmurs rose in the room. A spearwife siding with a crow? Tormund shook his head. "I go too. If we want peace, we go together." "That's the only way." Rattleshirt slammed his fist down. "And what if they kill you the moment you ride up? What if they string your guts from the wall?" Jon met his eyes. "Then they prove they're the real savages." That was the moment something shifted. The wildlings weren't soft, but they weren't stupid either. They had children to feed, fires to keep lit, and the dead marching toward them from the north. Pride could wait. Survival could not. Mance leaned back and studied the trio. "You want to stop this war before it begins? Fine. But if they kill you, don't expect me to send a rescue party." Jon nodded. "I wouldn't." By nightfall, the three were ready. They left quietly, without banners or songs. Just three riders slipping through the darkness. As they moved toward the wall, old fears crept into Jon's mind. What if Sir Alliser was still in charge? What if the brothers didn't listen? What if they shot first? Ygritte rode beside him in silence. She looked calm, but Jon knew her well enough to see the tension in her jaw. "You sure you want to do this?" he asked. "I'm not going back to war," she said. "Not unless there's no other way." Tormund was humming a low tune behind them, probably to scare off the cold. "Never thought I'd see the day when I rode toward the wall with a crow on purpose." Jon allowed a small smile. Stranger things have happened. When the wall finally came into view, tall and endless, like a frozen god standing guard, the three stopped. Torches burned at Castle Black, small and distant. Jon pulled up his hood. No turning back now. They approached slowly, raising no weapons, showing their hands. The wind screamed as if to warn them. Then came the shout. "Halt!" Figures appeared along the top of the wall. Arrows knocked. Crossbows ready. Jon stepped forward. "It's Jon Snow. I need to speak to the Lord Commander." "Prove it." Someone shouted. Jon lifted his hand and called out the old knight's watch vow, every word echoing off the ice. Another moment passed. Then the gates creaked. They were opening. But as the three walked forward, a sharp whistle cut through the air, and an arrow struck the ground inches from Jon's foot. "That's your welcome," Ygritte muttered. Jon narrowed his eyes. "Then we'd better make them listen." As they stepped inside Castle Black, the cold wasn't just in the air, it was in the stairs. Brothers of the Night's Watch lined the walkway, black-cloaked and grim-faced. Every step Jon took, he felt the weight of suspicion pressing down on him. They looked at him like a ghost, a traitor, a man who had slept in the tents of the enemy. Sir Alliser Thorne waited near the steps to the keep, arms crossed, lips curled in disgust. "Look what the storm dragged in," he sneered. "The crow who turned wildling." Jon stopped in front of him. "Where's the Lord Commander?" Thorne stepped forward. "He's dead, Snow, and I'm in charge now." The words hit like ice water. Jon blinked. "Jeor Mormont is dead?" "Aye. Killed during the mutiny at Craster's Keep." Thorn said coldly. While you were too busy cuddling with the free folk. Tormund stepped forward with a growl, but Jon held out his arm to stop him. I'm not here to argue. I'm here to warn you. Mance Rayder is planning to attack the wall. Thousands are coming. But I have a way to stop it without bloodshed. Thorn laughed. Spare me your tailies. You think you can waltz in here with your red-haired whore and your giant friend and expect mercy? Ygritte's hand went to her bow instantly. Jon gritted his teeth. Don't, he whispered. But Thorn kept going. You abandoned your brothers? You broke your vows. And now you bring the enemy to our gates? I'm trying to save you, Jon snapped. You've never seen a White Walker. I have. You think Mance is the threat? He's trying to run from what's coming, not bring war to you. From the back, a voice rose. Let him speak. It was Samwell Tarly. He pushed through the brothers, his round face pale but determined. Jon has always done what he believed was right, even when we didn't understand. Thorn scoffed. This fat coward has no say here. Another voice rose, deep and commanding. He has more sense than you. Everyone turned. Maester Aemon stood on the walkway, his white eyes blind, but his presence sharp as ever. Bring them inside. We'll hear what they have to say. Thorn hesitated, but stepped back. Fine, let them speak. And when they hang, I'll be the one to tie the knot. Inside the hall, the fire crackled as Jon laid everything bare. He told them about Mance's plan, about the numbers, the desperation. He told them about the dead rising, about the village wiped clean with no bodies left behind. This war isn't about land anymore, Jon said. It's about survival. If we let them through peacefully, we gain allies against the real enemy. Thorn laughed again. You want to let wildlings through the wall? We'll be slaughtered in our sleep. Not if we do it right, Tormund growled. Not if you treat us like men, not beasts. Ygritte spoke too. You think we like this? You think we want your charity? We just want to live. Same as you. Maester Aemon sat silent for a long moment. Then he spoke. A Targaryen once made peace with a Stark and ended a war. Perhaps now is the time for another truce. But Thorn wasn't done. Even if we agree, what makes you think Mance will keep his word? He will, Jon said, but I need to go back. With proof, a plan began to take shape. The Watch would allow a meeting. Mance Rayder and a few of his trusted leaders would be allowed to come to the wall, under truce, to speak peace terms. Just to talk, no weapons. Don't expect me to save you when they slit our throats, Thorn muttered. You won't have to, Jon replied. But if you're wrong, no one will be left to save. As they left the hall, Sam caught Jon's arm. You really trust them? I trust what I've seen, Jon said. And I know what's coming. We can't face it alone. Outside, Ygritte looked up at the wall. You think your crows will really make peace with us? Jon looked at her, then at Tormund. We'll find out soon enough. One mistake, and this all ends in fire. Tormund cracked his knuckles. Then let's not make a mistake. Jon, Ygritte, and Tormund didn't rest long at Castle Black. Time was slipping like snow through fingers. The plan was simple, but dangerous. Return to Mance Rayder. Tell him the Night's Watch agreed to a peace talk, and then escort him and a few chosen leaders to the wall under a banner of truce. It sounded noble, but in the north, even noble things froze and died. As they rode back through the frozen woods, Ygritte's voice broke the silence. Your people looked ready to hang you. Jon didn't answer at first. The weight of it all sat heavy in his chest. They don't trust me anymore. Maybe they shouldn't, Tormund snorted. You think trust comes easy to crows or wildlings? Nah, you earn it with blood. You may have bled snow, but you ain't finished bleeding yet. When they reached the wildling camp again, things had shifted. The wind howled louder. Tents were packed tighter. Faces were harder. The smell of fear was stronger than smoke. Jon approached Mance's tent, and was let in immediately. Mance stood over a new map, tracking the undead attacks in the far north. Villages wiped out, scouts vanished, bones found in strange shapes. "I thought you'd be dead by now," Mance said, without looking up. "I might be soon," Jon replied. "But for now, I bring you something else. A chance." He laid it out. The Watch agreed to a parley, a proper meeting. Mance and a few of his people would be allowed through the wall, under protection, to talk. No ambush, no tricks. Mance studied him. "And what does your Seerthorn say about that?" "He'd rather hang me and burn you," Jon said flatly. "But he's been overruled. Mester Aemon's holding the truce together for now." Silence hung in the air. Tormund watched Mance closely. Ygritte stood by the flap, her hand never far from her bow. "You really think I should walk into their fortress?" Mance said. "Just trust them not to cut my throat." Jon stepped closer. "If you don't, there will be no peace. And when the dead come, there won't be enough of us left to fight." Mance let out a long breath. "If I die, the clans will scatter. The whole thing falls apart." "Then don't die," Tormund said simply. Mance finally nodded. "Fine, but I'm not going alone." He chose 5 to come with him. Tormund, of course, and Ygritte. Also Rattleshirt, who hated the idea but came anyway, snarling threats, and Val, Mance's sister-in-law, calm but deadly with her knives. The last was a skinny old man called Ghost Song, a silent elder with eyes like winter glass. No one really knew what he was, but they said he'd seen a White Walker once and never spoke again. As the group rode toward Castle Black, tension built with every mile. Jon knew if anything went wrong, if even one arrow flew without order, this fragile hope would explode into war. When the wall came into sight, a black banner flew from the top, a sign of parley. The gates opened slowly. Armed brothers stood in lines, weapons sheathed but ready. Thorn stood at the front, his face twisted with hate. Mance and his people dismounted. Jon walked beside him, heart hammering. "This is a bad idea," Rattleshirt growled under his breath. "Shut up," Ygritte whispered. They entered the hall. Mester Aemon sat at the end of the table, blind eyes lifted as if he could still see the storm between them all. Mance stood before the Watch. "I don't want war, but I won't let my people die in the snow while you sit behind your wall and pretend the world isn't burning." Thorn spat. "You've killed our brothers for years, and you've hunted us like dogs for centuries," Mance replied. "Enough," Aemon said, his voice soft but firm. "Both sides have blood on their hands. The question is whether there's still time to stop the bleeding." Jon stepped forward. "Let the wildlings through, not as enemies, but as guests. Guard them if you must. Feed who you can. Arm those who will fight beside us. We need every sword when the dead come." The room fell into silence. Then a voice from the back spoke up. "How do we know this isn't a trap?" It was Bowen Marsh. His eyes were full of suspicion. Jon didn't flinch. "You don't, but if we keep doing what we've always done, we'll die just the same. Only colder. Only slower." Mester Aemon nodded. "Then let the cold winds hear our answer. Peace. For now." But even as the agreement was made, Jon saw the look in Seerthorn's eyes. It was the look of a man waiting for the perfect moment to drive a knife in someone's back. Peace came to the wall like a wounded beast, limping, bleeding, and watched with suspicion from every side. The gates opened each morning, slowly, cautiously, to allow small groups of wildlings through. Mothers with children, old men, wounded hunters, they walked with hands raised, eyes lowered, and the fear of betrayal in their hearts. The Night's Watch searched every one of them. Some were turned away. Some were jailed. Most were simply ignored. Inside Castle Black, tension was thick as frost. Brothers muttered in corners. Steel was sharpened twice as often. Sir Alistair Thorne watched everything like a hawk starved for war. His face twisted more every time he saw a wildling child near the kitchens, or a spearwife warming herself by the fire. "This is a disgrace," he hissed one night as Jon passed. "You're feeding the wolves and expecting them not to bite." "They're not wolves," Jon replied, without stopping. "They're men, same as you. Only colder." Thorn grabbed his arm. "You think this ends in peace?" "You're more foolish than I thought." Jon pulled free. "No, I think it ends in blood. The only question is whose." Ygritte spent her days teaching the spearwives how to survive the wall's strange ways, how to stay quiet in the tunnels, how to carry water in the cold, how to walk like a shadow under all those watching eyes. At night, she and Jon sat together by a small fire in one of the empty towers. They didn't talk much. They didn't need to. "You ever think about leaving?" she asked one night, staring at the flames. "Every day," Jon said. "But the wall always pulls me back." She looked at him. "Maybe one day it won't." Jon didn't answer. His heart was torn between two worlds, and both of them were crumbling. Tormund, meanwhile, walked among the crows like he belonged there. He cracked jokes at supper. He shared stories of bear fights and bone feasts. Some brothers laughed. Others tightened their grip on their knives. "Still don't trust me?" he asked one of the younger men, smiling wide. The lad looked nervous. "You're a wildling, and you're a crow, yet here we are, both freezing our bollocks off. Isn't life funny?" He slapped the boy on the back and walked away whistling. But even Tormund felt the air changing. He could feel it in the way the brothers looked at Mance when he walked the yard. He could feel it in the way the guards at the gate stood a little stiffer, their hands a little too close to their swords. Something was wrong. And then came the night the bodies were found. 3 brothers of the Night's Watch, posted in the northern tunnel, their throats slit. No struggle, no warning. Just silence and blood. Found before dawn, their faces frozen in fear. The watch erupted in chaos. Accusations flew. Thorn's voice rang across the yard. "I warned you. Let wolves into your den, and they'll kill in your sleep." Jon stood in the yard as the flames from the pyres licked the black sky. Mance was brought forward in chains. So was Rattleshirt. So was a boy barely 16, taken from the wildling tents. Ygritte stood in front of Jon, her face pale with fury. "They didn't do this. You think Thorn cares?" Jon growled. "He's been waiting for this." Tormund shoved his way into the circle of shouting men. "You think we'd kill while we're under truce? What kind of cowards do you think we are?" "You're the kind who lie with knives," Bowen Marsh snarled. The crowd was ready to explode. One spark, and it would burn. Jon raised his voice. "No one touches anyone until we know the truth." Seer Thorn stepped forward, his hand on his sword. "And who made you king, Snow?" Jon stared him down. "No one. But if we break the truce now, we lose everything." "You already lost," Thorn spat. "You just don't know it yet." That night, Jon sat alone in the rookery, watching the ravens sleep. Darkness pressed at the window. Fear curled in his gut like a sleeping snake. "Someone wants this truce to die," he whispered. And he had a sinking feeling it wasn't just the crows. Or the wildlings. Somewhere, in the shadows of the wall, someone else was pulling strings. And they were about to cut them all. The storm came without warning. Not a blizzard from the north, but a storm of blades, blood, and betrayal. Before the sun could rise, screams pierced the silence of Castle Black. Steel clashed in the courtyard. Torches were knocked down. Shadows ran wild. Jon was yanked from sleep by pounding on his door. "They've turned on the wildlings." Sam's voice shouted through the wood. "It's Thorn. He's ordered a purge." Jon threw on his cloak, strapped on Longclaw, and ran. Outside, chaos. Black brothers hunting through the camp like wolves through a flock. Tents slashed open. A child cried out. A spearwife lay dead with a dagger in her neck. 2 brothers held down a wildling boy, beating him bloody while he screamed for his mother. Jon didn't hesitate. He drew Longclaw and shoved one of the men off. "Stop!" They turned in shock. "You're protecting them?" One of them growled. "I'm protecting what little hope we have left," Jon snapped. He pointed Longclaw at them. "Drop him, now." Reluctantly, they backed off. The boy crawled away, sobbing. The wall was burning, not with fire, but with rage. Men were dying for nothing but fear. The fragile peace had shattered like ice beneath a boot. Jon fought his way to the main yard, where Sir Alliser Thorne stood surrounded by loyal men, most of them holding bloodied swords. "You've doomed us all," Jon shouted. "No," Thorne said calmly, almost smug. "You did. The moment you opened the gates." Behind Thorne, Rattleshirt was being dragged in chains, blood leaking from his lip. Ghost Song was already dead, his throat slit in the snow like a sacrificed lamb. Val was missing. Ygritte and Tormund stood at the center of the chaos, surrounded, weapons drawn. Ygritte had an arrow aimed at Thorne's face. "Let us go," she growled, "or I'll put this in your eye." "Do it," Thorne hissed. "And you die next." Jon stepped between them, his voice breaking with fury. "You fool. The White Walkers will be here any day. You're spilling blood while death watches us from the trees." Thorne sneered. "Let them come. Better to die with steel in hand than kneeling beside savages." Mance Rayder was shoved into the yard, hands bound, face bruised. He looked at Jon, not with fear, but with sadness. "You tried?" Jon looked around. Every side was ready to kill. One breath too loud, one step too close, and the yard would drown in blood. Then a horn blew. Not one. 3. The world froze. 3 horn blasts. Not rangers returning, not allies. White Walkers. Jon turned to the wall. Above, ravens screamed into the sky. From the top of the wall came a shout. "The dead! They're coming!" Everything stopped. Even Thorne paled. A rider galloped down the icy tunnel. His face was white with fear. "They're here! At the northern gate. Hundreds, no, thousands." The sound of drums, no, not drums. Bones, bones clacking. And then the howling. Jon looked at Thorne. "Now do you understand?" Thorne stood frozen. His sword slipped slightly in his hand. Jon turned to Tormund. "Get every man who can fight. Now." He looked to the Black Brothers. "You hate them? Fine. Fight beside them anyway. Or die beside them later." No one moved. Then Ygritte lowered her bow. "If we're dying, I'm dying with an arrow in my hand, not in my back." Tormund shouted to the wildlings. "Gather your steel. It's time we show the dead who the free folk really are." Jon looked up at the sky. Snow began to fall again. Heavy, silent. The dead were coming. And if this was the end, they'd make it a bloody one. The gates slammed shut behind them, but it didn't matter anymore. The dead weren't coming through the gate, they were coming over it. From the top of the wall, the horns howled again. Shadows moved in the far distance slow at first, but steady, like a black river crawling across the ice. Thousands of corpses. Dead men, dead women, even dead children. Some were just bones wrapped in rags. Others still wore the faces of the living. And behind them, watching like gods carved in frost-white walkers, tall, silent, their eyes glowing like stars, over a dead sea, Jon stood in the center of the yard, commanding chaos. Barricade the tunnels. Archers on the walls. If you've never held a blade, get behind one that has. Wildlings and crows scrambled together, side by side, with no time left to hate each other. Tormund roared orders in the old tongue, rallying the spearwives and the Thenns. Even Rattleshirt, unchained now, lifted his bone-covered axe and growled, "If I die tonight, I'll take 10 of the bastards with me." Ygritte climbed the battlements, quiver on her back, bow in hand, red hair shining in the torchlight. Jon caught her eyes from the yard. She nodded once. "I told you," she shouted down. "You'd never leave the wall." He couldn't even smile. Not now. The first wave hit just after nightfall. They came like a nightmare, silent, relentless, unstoppable. The ice cracked beneath their feet, but still they came. Arrows flew. Fire flared. Stones rained down from the wall's edge. And still they came. Jon stood on the second level of the wall, cutting down the risen as they clawed up the wooden lifts and ropes, cold hands reaching for flesh. Longclaw hissed through the air, Valyrian steel slicing through bone and shadow, but it wasn't enough. Below, the gates splintered as giant wights, twisted corpses of mammoths and bears, crashed into them like battering rams. Screams rose from every tower. Blood soaked into the snow, and the dead didn't care who wore black or fur. They just killed. A scream caught Jon's ears. Ygritte. He turned. She was on the far wall, surrounded. 3 wights lunged at her. She loosed an arrow into one skull, then stabbed another with a dragonglass dagger, but the third knocked her down. "Ygritte!" Jon shouted, charging across the walkway, shoving 2 brothers aside. He reached her as the creature raised a jagged piece of ice, ready to stab. Jon tackled it, driving Longclaw through its back. It screeched and dissolved into snow. He dropped beside her, pulling her up. Blood streaked her lip, but she was alive. "You never listen," she said weakly. "You talk too much," Jon replied, helping her up. They didn't speak again. Because that's when the sky screamed? From the cliffs beyond the wall, the White Walkers raised their arms, and the wind answered. A gust blew through the wall, like the breath of death itself. Fires died. Men froze where they stood. Arrows turned to ice in the air. And then the dead rose again, the fallen brothers, the fallen wildlings. Even the children, they stood and turned and attacked. Jon felt the scream building in his throat, but forced it down. Fall back, to the keep. It was a retreat, not a victory. The courtyard was lost. Wildlings and black brothers ran shoulder to shoulder, dragging wounded, carrying the dying. Tormund fought like a demon, bloodied and roaring as he held the path open. Mance Rayder was bleeding badly, but refused to fall. "Get the living out. The rest of us hold the line." "No," Jon shouted, trying to reach him. But Mance shoved him back. "This is what we came for, Jon Snow. Let the living see another dawn." And with that, he turned and ran into the dead, screaming his last war cry. Jon, Ygritte, and Tormund reached the keep with barely a dozen others. Sam was there, holding a blade, his hands shaking. Val, somehow, had made it back too, dragging a wounded Rattleshirt. They barred the doors, reinforced the walls, set the last of the oil alight, and waited. Outside, the dead screamed. Inside, the last of the free folk and the Black Brothers, bloody, broken, and breathing, stood shoulder to shoulder. No oaths, no names, only the living. Jon looked around at them all. "This is the last line." No one argued. Ygritte whispered beside him, "If we die tonight." He stopped her. "No, when we die together." The door shook. The walls groaned. But the fire still burned, and outside death waited. But tonight the wall would not fall without a fight.